A single gunshot shattered the midnight calm inside the Rossi mansion. Crystal chandeliers trembled as silence devoured the echo. Blood pooled across the marble floor. And the Empire's king lay fallen. Ethan Moretti said, "The world just changed." His voice cracked beneath the weight of truth. The scent of gunpowder hung heavy, mixed with cigar smoke and fear. Outside, thunder rolled like applause for the dead. Vincenzo Rossi, once untouchable, now stared blankly into eternity. Sofia De Luca whispered, "Who did this?" Her hands shook as lightning lit her face. The walls seemed to close in, breathing secrets they could no longer hold. Marco Rossi stood by the grand piano, shadows hiding his eyes. Ethan felt his pulse quicken. This wasn't revenge, it was strategy. Somewhere deep inside, he knew the Empire was at war with itself. The phone on the table buzzed. A single message glowed on the screen. "It's done. The king is dead." Ethan's gaze hardened. The hunt had begun. Morning light crept through rain-streaked windows, washing away the sins of the night before. Ethan Moretti stood alone in the hallway, haunted by the image of Vincenzo Rossi's empty stare. Sofia De Luca said, "The police will come. They'll want names." Her words sliced the silence. Marco Rossi leaned against the doorframe, his expression unreadable. "Names won't bring him back," he said coldly. Ethan's chest tightened. Every corner of the mansion felt like it whispered traitor. The Empire was leaderless, and chaos brewed like smoke beneath stone. Ethan reached for a glass of whiskey, his reflection shaking in the amber liquid. Somewhere beyond the rain, sirens wailed. He whispered, "This isn't over." The truth was a blade waiting for the right moment to cut. The house groaned with memories of power now turned to dust. Who among them fired the fatal shot? The rain refused to stop. Luca Serrano cleaned his weapon with calm precision, each metallic click echoing like confession. "You think it was an inside job?" Ethan Moretti asked, his voice steady but eyes weary. Luca didn't answer. His silence spoke louder. Sofia De Luca watched from the corner, her gaze heavy with doubt. The air smelled of gun oil and grief. Ethan's thoughts ran wild. Loyalty was a myth in this world. "Trust no one," he muttered. Lightning flared across the mansion, illuminating Marco Rossi's figure in the doorway. He smiled faintly, too calm for the chaos around them. Ethan's pulse raced as realization crept in. The war wasn't coming. It had already begun. The ghosts of loyalty were now loaded, guns pointed at every friend. By evening, the mansion was crawling with police. Flashlights swept through blood-stained corridors like ghosts searching for justice. Detective voices filled the silence once owned by crime. Ethan Moretti stayed silent as they questioned everyone. Sofia De Luca's eyes never left his face, sensing his storm within. "You knew this would happen," she said quietly. Ethan nodded once, the truth too sharp to voice. Marco Rossi stood by the stairs, calm as ever, his hands folded. "The Empire needs order," he said to the officers. His tone was control disguised as grief. Ethan clenched his fists. Somewhere, Isabella Moretti watched from the shadows, her tears unseen. Outside, lightning struck again, a warning from above. The night was far from over, and Ethan knew he had only one choice: find the betrayer before the betrayer found him. Rain finally eased as night deepened into silence. The mansion stood still, a monument to betrayal. Ethan Moretti stood by Vincenzo Rossi's portrait, the faint candlelight dancing over the painted crown on the wall. "He built this empire," Ethan said softly, "and we destroyed it." Sofia De Luca joined him, her voice breaking. "What now?" Ethan turned, his eyes hard. "Now we find out who wrote the final chapter." The air was thick with regret. A gust of wind blew out the candle, plunging them into darkness. Somewhere deep in the house, a phone rang again, a tone that echoed like destiny's call. Ethan whispered into the black, "The game isn't over." Outside, thunder rolled once more, like applause for the coming storm. Gunfire erupted through the alley as Ethan Moretti ran beneath flashing neon signs. Tires screeched, sirens wailed, and the city pulsed with chaos. "They're everywhere!" Sofia DeLuca shouted, ducking behind a car. Ethan's breath came sharp, every heartbeat echoing in his ears. Shadows danced across the wet pavement as bullets sparked like fireworks. Lucas Serrano appeared at the end of the alley, his gun steady. "You've been followed, Ethan," he said coldly. The words struck harder than the rain. Marco Rossi's car sped past the corner, headlights slicing through the fog. Ethan's instinct screamed. Betrayal was closing in. "No one's supposed to know this route," he muttered, Sofia whispered. "Unless one of us told them." The thought froze the air. A bullet shattered the side mirror. Ethan fired back, his mind torn between survival and truth. He felt a shift. This wasn't just pursuit. Someone inside their circle had sold them out. The safe house smelled of dust and silence. Rain dripped through broken shutters, tapping a steady rhythm on the wooden floor. Ethan Moretti leaned against the wall, blood drying on his sleeve. "We can't stay here," Sofia DeLuca said softly, her voice trembling between fear and fatigue. Ethan glanced at her, exhaustion carved lines across her face. "You saved me back there," he said quietly. She smiled faintly. "Don't thank me yet." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken doubts. On the table lay a single photograph, Vincenzo Rossi standing with politicians and soldiers, men too powerful to fall. Ethan traced the edges with his finger. He wasn't just running an empire, he murmured. He was protecting something. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the photo. A coded number was etched faintly at the bottom. Sofia's eyes widened. "That's not just a signature," she said. The rain outside grew louder, as if the city itself had started to listen. In the penthouse overlooking the harbor, Marco Rossi stood before tall glass windows as lightning cracked across the skyline. His reflection merged with the city, beautiful and cruel. "They're slipping," Marco said, voice calm like silk over steel. On the screen behind him, surveillance feeds displayed Ethan Moretti and Sofia DeLuca moving through the streets. "He's always been predictable," Marco continued. A deep voice replied from the shadows, belonging to a man unseen. "Don't underestimate him." Marco smiled faintly. "Underestimating him is how I'll win." He poured himself a drink, the glass catching shards of lightning. The city outside thundered like applause for betrayal. He whispered, "He thinks I'm saving him. He doesn't know I'm the storm." The power flickered, and the unseen figure stepped forward. Lucas Serrano. His tone was colder than the rain. "Orders are clear, no survivors." The silence that followed felt like a promise written in blood. Deep beneath the old cathedral, Ethan Moretti met Father Gabriel Conti, an aged priest whose eyes carried the weight of too many secrets. Candlelight painted trembling halos on stone walls. "You seek truth," Gabriel said softly. "But truth is a weapon sharper than any blade." Ethan's voice was low. "Someone inside betrayed us." The priest nodded, placing a file on the altar. "This empire was built on blood pacts. Break one, and it devours itself." Sofia DeLuca stepped closer, reading faded photographs inside the file. Images of global meetings, names that reached beyond the Mafia. "They controlled governments," she whispered. Ethan clenched his jaw. "Then it's bigger than us." Gabriel looked into his eyes. "Bigger, yes, but not stronger than guilt." The word struck something raw in him. The bells above began to toll. Their echo filled the crypt with warning. Redemption demands sacrifice. Night blanketed the city in secrecy. Ethan Moretti loaded his gun, staring out the cracked window of the safe house. The rain had stopped, but the air buzzed with dread. "We have names now," Sofia DeLuca said, sliding a note across the table. Ethan read them. Politicians, bankers, soldiers, ghosts wearing human faces. "If we go after them," she warned, "there's no turning back." Ethan's reflection in the glass looked older, colder. "Then we go forward," he said quietly. The decision settled between them like thunder before a storm. Sofia reached for her coat, eyes heavy with fear and trust. "Marco won't let this happen," she said. Ethan turned to her, his voice steel. "Then Marco Rossi dies tonight." The lights outside flickered once, signaling the city's breath before chaos. He walked into the darkness, ready to end what began with one gunshot. The war for power had officially begun. The morning sun painted calm lies across the harbor. Seagulls cried softly above as if unaware of the blood still drying in the city's veins. Ethan Moretti and Sofia DeLuca arrived at a quiet cafe by the docks. The illusion of peace wrapped around danger. The air smelled of salt and burnt espresso. "We can't trust anyone now," Sofia said, watching the waves. Ethan nodded, scanning reflections in the window. A man approached, tall and polished, wearing a government badge. "Detective Alan Rizzo," he said smoothly. "I can help you bring the Rossi Empire down." His smile was practiced, his eyes unreadable. Ethan felt the unease beneath the politeness. "Why now?" he asked. "Because time is running out," Rizzo replied, handing him a sealed envelope. The sound of a boat horn echoed through the silence, masking the tension. Sofia's hand trembled as she reached for the file. Inside, names gleamed like buried knives. Something wasn't right. The help had come too easily. Later that night, the safe house felt warmer than usual. A single lamp glowed between Ethan Moretti and Sofia DeLuca as rain whispered against the window. They spoke quietly, voices filled with exhaustion and trust. "If this ends badly," Sofia said, "promise me you'll leave." Ethan shook his head. "I've already stayed too long to run." Their eyes met, fragile honesty wrapped in fear. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. "Maybe we can still make it out alive," she whispered. The silence that followed was soft, almost hopeful. Yet, Ethan noticed the small details. Sofia's phone screen lighting twice, her gaze flickering toward it before she hid it away. He didn't ask. He wanted to believe her. "Tomorrow we move," he said. Sofia nodded, but her eyes told another story. The lamp flickered once, shadows crossing their faces. Trust felt heavy, like glass that might break if they breathed too hard. Marco Rossi waited in a candlelit room surrounded by ledgers and photographs of the fallen empire. Ethan Moretti entered, gun drawn but voice calm. "You knew about the betrayal," he said. Marco smiled faintly. "I know everything." The room hummed with quiet power. "You and I were never enemies, Ethan," Marco continued. "You just refused to see the truth." Ethan's tone hardened. "The truth got our people killed." Marco's eyes glinted. "The truth is survival." His words cut deep. They were two sides of the same wound. Sofia DeLuca stepped from behind Marco, her expression unreadable. Ethan's breath caught. Her presence was a knife in silence. "You're with him," he whispered. She looked down, guilt trembling in her voice. "It's not what you think," Marco chuckled softly. "It's exactly what he thinks." The candles flickered violently as thunder shook the windows. In that light, Ethan saw his own reflection in Marco's eyes. A man shaped by betrayal, just like him. The silence before the shot felt endless. Sofia DeLuca stepped forward, tears glittering under candlelight. "Please, Ethan," she said. "I had no choice." Ethan's voice was ice. "You always had a choice." Marco Rossi raised his weapon. "End this," he ordered. In one motion, Sophia turned, the gun in her hand shaking violently. Ethan's chest tightened. "Don't do it!" The air cracked as a gun fired. The echo crashed through the room. Smoke filled the air, curling like serpents. Marco staggered backward, shock flashing in his eyes. Sophia had shot him. "He was going to kill you," she whispered, voice breaking. Marco collapsed, blood staining the marble floor. Ethan caught Sophia as she fell to her knees. For a heartbeat, relief flickered, then pain replaced it. Sophia's phone vibrated on the floor, displaying a message from Marco's encrypted line. "Execute Plan B." Ethan's world tilted. The betrayal wasn't hers alone. Someone else had written the script. The rain outside drowned the city in silver. Ethan Moretti sat beside the dying fire, his mind burning with betrayal. Sophia DeLuca rested unconscious beside him, her breath shallow. Marco Rossi's body had been taken, vanished before dawn. "He's alive," Ethan muttered. The words tasted like iron. On the table lay the phone that started it all. He scrolled through messages, finding threads leading higher. Politicians, bankers, generals. The empire's roots went deeper than he ever imagined. The betrayal was never personal. It was systemic. "He played us all," Ethan whispered. Sophia stirred, eyes fluttering open. "Hell come for you," she said weakly. Ethan stood, loading his weapon, the sound cold and final. "Let him," he said. Lightning split the sky, casting his face in firelight. The reflection in the window showed a man no longer seeking redemption, only truth. He stepped into the rain. The war for vengeance had officially begun. Dawn crept over the city like a confession. The rain had stopped, but silence remained, heavy, absolute. Ethan Moretti stood in the middle of the safe house, staring at walls stained by gunfire and memory. The clock ticked faintly, marking the seconds since betrayal. Sophia DeLuca slept fitfully on the couch, her face pale beneath the fading firelight. Ethan whispered, "Everything feels wrong." He traced the cracks on the wall like lines of fate. The phone still lay on the table. The last message burned into its screen. His thoughts replayed every lie, every half-truth, every handshake that hid a knife. The air smelled of damp wood and guilt. "It was never about power," he murmured. "It was about control." A faint sound outside, a newspaper hitting the door, broke the silence. Ethan opened it, finding a headline that froze his blood. "Government raid exposes global syndicate ties." Below it, Vincenzo Rossi's name. The truth was waking. The smell of cigar smoke and old wood filled Ethan Moretti's mind as the flashback hit him like lightning. The memory was vivid. Vincenzo Rossi standing in a dim study years ago, whispering, "You can't destroy what you built with your own hands." Ethan had been younger then, eager, loyal. The same room now existed only in fragments. Dust, blood, and echoes. He remembered the sound of Rossi's ring tapping the desk, a rhythm of control. Sophia DeLuca's voice pulled him back to the present. "You knew him better than anyone," she said softly. Ethan nodded. "I thought he was my savior." He opened a hidden compartment in Ross's desk, revealing a folder marked Project Serpent. Inside were contracts, photos, and bank transfers linking world leaders. "He wasn't building a family," Ethan whispered. "He was building a government." The rain outside resumed, faint and relentless. The empire had never been about crime. It had been about ruling the world. That night, the cathedral crypt echoed once again. Father Gabriel Conti awaited Ethan Moretti beneath flickering candlelight, his face drawn with grief. "You've come for answers," Gabriel said. Ethan's tone was hollow. "I've come for the truth." The priest placed a cross on the altar and whispered, "You already know it." Ethan stepped closer, his hands trembling. Rossi wasn't the real leader. Gabriel nodded slowly. "The syndicate has no single head. It's a circle. One ends, another begins." The candles hissed, their smoke curling like ghosts. "Then who started it?" Ethan demanded. The priest's voice cracked. "You did." Silence swallowed the space. Ethan staggered back, disbelief washing through him. "He chose you," Gabriel said. "Every act, every murder, every decision was his test." The sound of distant bells filled the chamber. Ethan felt the truth burn inside him. He had been the foundation all along. The Empire's monster wasn't gone. It was reborn in him. Hours later, Ethan Moretti found Marco Rossi alive, hidden in an abandoned theater, bathed in red light. The smell of dust and gasoline lingered. Marco sat on the stage, calm, wounded, but smiling. "You finally see it?" Marco said. "We were never enemies, Ethan. We were successors." Ethan's voice broke through the echo. "You used me." Marco leaned forward. "No, I freed." "The Empire doesn't die. It transforms." His calmness was unnerving, his tone almost compassionate. "Vincenzo didn't betray you," Marco continued. "He prepared you to replace him." Ethan shook his head. "I'm nothing like you." Marco smiled faintly. "Then prove it." The words carried a dare heavier than bullets. The spotlight flickered, dust dancing in golden beams. Ethan felt every lie turn to ash. Marco's final whisper echoed through the empty theater. "There's no truth in justice, only power that survives it." The world suddenly felt colder. The enemy wasn't the syndicate. It was belief itself. The sea wind carried salt and silence as Ethan Moretti stood on the pier at dusk. The city behind him shimmered like broken glass. He had seen too much, lost too much. Sofia DeLuca joined him, bandaged and weary. "So this was the truth all along," she said. Ethan's eyes stayed on the horizon. It wasn't about winning. It was about surviving the lie. The sun dipped, casting fire across the waves. "What will you do now?" she asked softly. Ethan exhaled slowly. "End it," he said. "Every piece, every name, burned to ash." Sophia looked at him with quiet sorrow. "And after that?" Ethan turned slightly, his face calm, resolved. "Then maybe I'll remember who I was before all this." The waves crashed like applause for the dead. The phone in his pocket vibrated again. Unknown caller. He didn't answer. The truth had already spoken. Tomorrow would bring war, but tonight there was silence. The night breathed in silence before the storm. Wind howled through shattered windows of the abandoned theater. Ethan Moretti stepped through the shadows, his boots echoing against marble dust. The faint hum of generators powered the flickering lights. Somewhere above, water dripped in rhythm to his heartbeat. Sofia DeLuca's voice whispered through his earpiece. "He's here." Ethan drew a deep breath, feeling the tremor in his chest. Every muscle tightened. Every sound carried weight. Footsteps answered from the stage ahead. Slow, deliberate, Marco Rossi's calm voice echoed. "I knew you'd come." The air thickened. Ethan's pulse became thunder inside his skull. "This ends tonight," he said. Marco's reply came soft, almost kind. "Nothing ends. It only begins again." The lights flickered once more, plunging half the hall into darkness. Ethan lifted his gun, eyes locked on the moving shadow. The world held its breath before collision. Lightning flashed through the broken ceiling as Ethan Moretti stepped into the open. "You built an empire on blood," he said. Marco Rossi smiled faintly. And you're standing on it. They circled each other like predators. Their words struck harder than bullets. You betrayed your own brotherhood, Ethan shouted. I fulfilled its promise. Marco answered. Gunfire erupted. Glass exploded in slow motion. Each shot punctuated years of silence. Marco ducked behind the stage pillars, shouting, You still don't see. Power isn't evil. Weakness is. Ethan dove for cover, bullets grazing his arm. You call murder strength? He gasped. I call it order. Marco's voice rose above the chaos. Sparks rained from cut cables, painting the fight in flashes of gold. The floor shook with impact. Ethan charged forward, eyes burning with fury. Their guns met midair, hands locking. The struggle became personal. Survival against the reflection of what each could have been. A scream echoed from the upper balcony. Sofia De Luca appeared, clutching a pistol, eyes wide with fear. Ethan, she cried, firing at the men rushing from the side doors, Marco's hidden guards. Bullets sliced through the air. Ethan turned just in time to see Sofia dive across the stage, shielding him from a shot meant for his heart. The sound cracked like thunder. Time fractured. She fell into his arms, breath trembling. You said we'd make it out, she whispered. Ethan's voice broke. Stay with me. Her hand brushed his cheek, blood glinting on her fingers. End it, she said softly, eyes closing. The chaos around them blurred, gunfire muted, world collapsing into silence. Ethan's tears mixed with the dust as he laid her down gently. You saved me again, he murmured. The stage lights flickered one last time, reflecting the cost of loyalty. The Empire demanded payment, and she had paid in full. Ethan Moretti rose slowly, rage replacing grief. Marco Rossi stood across the stage, gun aimed, eyes glinting. You turned her against me, Ethan said. Marco's smile faltered. She chose her fate. Lightning struck outside, lighting the hall in white fire. You killed everything we stood for, Ethan shouted. I preserved it, Marco roared back. They fired simultaneously. The sound deafening, light exploding like a dying star. Smoke curled around them as both men staggered. Ethan pushed forward, tackling Marco through the burning curtains. They crashed into the orchestra pit, fists and fury colliding. You're no savior, Ethan hissed, punching through the blood and rain dripping from the ceiling. You're the disease, Marco gasped, smirking through pain. And you're the cure? Ethan's hand trembled as he pressed the trigger one final time. The shot echoed like judgment. Silence followed, long and absolute. Only thunder applauded. Morning bled through clouds over the city's ruins. The theater smoldered behind Ethan Moretti as he walked through the ash, coat torn, hands trembling. Marco Rossi's body lay beneath collapsed beams, eyes open to nothing. The rain had turned to mist, washing blood from cracked marble. Ethan paused at the doorway, watching faint sunlight cut through smoke. His breath came slow, steady. The war was over, yet peace felt hollow. Sofia De Luca's pendant hung in his hand, glinting faintly. You said we'd make it out, he whispered. Somewhere in the distance, sirens echoed. Not for him, but for the world that was still burning. Ethan looked toward the horizon. It's done, he murmured, the words trembling with finality. He turned away as the theater collapsed behind him. The last sound was the soft crash of falling glass, like applause fading into silence. The age of kings had ended. The city breathed again. Smoke drifted above the ruins like fading memories. Ethan Moretti walked through the silent streets, boots pressing into wet ash. The air carried the smell of rain and metal. Every sound felt distant. The hum of morning, the rustle of paper ghosts. The theater behind him was a grave for power. A stray cat crossed the road. Even it seemed cautious. Ethan's coat hung heavy, soaked with blood and time. He stopped at a broken mirror lying in the gutter and saw his reflection. A man rebuilt from ruin. "So this is peace," he whispered. The words vanished into fog. Somewhere a church bell rang, slow and hollow. Its echo filled the space where bullets once sang. The war had taken everything. The empire, the woman, the faith. He closed his eyes and exhaled. The silence didn't comfort him. It judged him. Ethan Moretti sat inside a half-collapsed cafe where the walls still smelled of burnt sugar. The rain outside had softened into mist. He placed Sofia DeLuca's pendant on the table, fingers tracing its curve. The quiet clicked inside him like clockwork restarting. "You said we'd make it out," he murmured. His mind replayed flashes, her laughter, her aim steady in chaos, her final breath. Each memory felt alive, flickering like film reels behind his eyes. A gust pushed open the door. The pendant spun in the draft, catching a streak of sunlight. He almost smiled. Guilt weighed heavy but lighter than before. "Life goes on," he said softly. The world outside stirred. Vendors shouting, cars passing, people rebuilding. He realized survival wasn't triumph. It was duty. The city had moved forward. So must he. As dusk settled, Ethan Moretti returned to the harbor. The water mirrored the bruised sky. Wind brushed against his face, bringing whispers from the past. A figure appeared beside him, Sofia DeLuca, faint, smiling the way he remembered. She looked untouched by pain, her voice soft as waves. "You kept your promise," she said. Ethan's breath caught. "You shouldn't be here." Her hand brushed his arm, light as mist. "I never left," she whispered. The world slowed. Time lost meaning. The air shimmered with memory and light. He wanted to hold her, but she faded with the tide's pull. "Goodbye," he said, but she was already gone. The sea answered with a hush, leaving him in peace and ache. Forgiveness filled the emptiness she left behind. Night blanketed the chapel ruins where Father Gabriel Conti once preached. Ethan Moretti lit a candle on the cracked altar. The faint glow danced across stone, illuminating old bullet scars. A small envelope rested beneath the cross, sealed with wax. He opened it. Gabriel's handwriting flowed steady despite age. "Truth is not purity. It is endurance. Survive it, and you find faith again." Ethan's throat tightened. The priest had known this ending. "You believed in redemption," he whispered. Outside, rain tapped softly on broken stained glass. He felt warmth spread through the cold. The light flickered, reflecting in his weary eyes. The message was clear. Some sins can't be erased, but they can be carried with honor. He smiled faintly for the first time in years. Morning rose slow and pale over the pier. Ethan Moretti stood at the edge, waves brushing the wooden posts below. The city behind him was quiet, healing. He dropped Sofia DeLuca's pendant into the sea. It vanished beneath silver ripples, catching one last spark of light before sinking. "Rest now," he said softly. The air smelled of salt and forgiveness. Seagulls circled overhead, their cries blending with the hum of life returning. He turned his gaze toward the horizon where sunlight broke through thin clouds. "No more empires," he whispered. "No more kings." His voice carried across the water like a vow. The wind answered with calm steadiness. For the first time, his heart felt unburdened. The world had changed, and so had he. The war was over. The war was over. Peace had a face, and it was his own reflection on the sea. The world had stopped screaming. Morning stretched softly over the harbor, touching the city with light that felt almost forgiving. Ethan Moretti sat on a bench facing the sea, his eyes tracing the slow dance of the wave. The sky was quiet, the air still, and for once no sirens echoed. The ghosts were silent too. His hands rested on his knees, veins like old scars of time. "It's over," he whispered, voice nearly lost in the wind. His reflection shimmered in the water, tired but free. The world behind him rebuilt itself, brick by brick, heartbeat by heartbeat. The empire was gone, but so was its king. Ethan tilted his head upward, watching gulls rise into the pale sky. A single question drifted through him like smoke. Had it been worth it? The silence didn't answer. It simply stayed, vast and eternal. By afternoon, Ethan Moretti walked through the old streets once ruled by fear. The buildings still bore bullet scars, yet flowers now grew in their cracks. He carried a small box, everything left of the past. Inside were a single bullet, a faded photograph of Sofia De Luca, and a letter signed by Vincenzo Rossi. He reached the bridge overlooking the water. The wind tugged gently at his coat, as if urging release. "No more ghosts," he said quietly. One by one, he dropped the relics into the river. Each splash sounded like forgiveness. The box emptied, his hands felt lighter. The current carried his memories downstream, dissolving them into silver ripples. He closed his eyes, breathing deeply, letting the world move on without him. Somewhere behind him, the clock tower rang the hour. Not an ending, but a continuation. That night, Ethan Moretti returned to his apartment. Quiet, clean, almost unfamiliar. The rain began again, tapping the window like an old rhythm. He opened the drawer and found a recorder, blinking red. He pressed play. Sofia De Luca's voice filled the room. "If you're hearing this, it means you lived. That's enough, Ethan. Don't chase redemption, just live." Her tone carried warmth and sorrow, like a song meant to be unfinished. He sat on the edge of the bed, the sound of her voice echoing in the dark. "You were right," he whispered. The rain softened to a hush, and for the first time in years he smiled. The message ended with static, but the silence afterward was alive, not empty. It carried her presence like a heartbeat that refused to fade. Every truth they had buried now bloomed quietly inside him. Days passed. Life returned to the city. Children laughed. Markets reopened. The wind carried music instead of gunfire. Ethan Moretti walked among the crowd, unnoticed, unarmed, finally ordinary. People no longer whispered his name. At a corner bakery, a woman handed him bread with a smile. "New beginning," she said kindly. He nodded. The smell of fresh loaves, the warmth of sunlight, they felt foreign yet pure. Across the street, a mural painted over the ruins read, "Power ends, truth remains." Ethan paused to look at it, the words painting peace across his face. The streets no longer belonged to men like him. He exhaled deeply, a silent acknowledgement of time passing. The world had healed a little, and so had he. Night fell softly. The moon shimmered over calm waters as Ethan Moretti stood once more at the pier where it had all begun. The wind carried no screams now, only the quiet hum of the sea. He took a slow breath and whispered, "It's done." His reflection wavered, older but lighter. The phone in his pocket buzzed, an unknown number. He stared at it, then let it ring. Some wars didn't need answers. He turned, walking away from the shore as the screen went dark. Behind him, the water glowed under moonlight, swallowing the last echo of the past. The world didn't need kings anymore, only survivors who remembered. His final thought drifted with the wind. Truth must never be owned. The camera pulled wide as his figure faded into night. A quiet man in a louder world, finally free.